Thank you everybody for attending. Hi everyone, thank you so much for making time to attend today's FEZANA talk session. My name is Tanya and I'm the Chief Social Media Officer for FEZANA. Now, if you don't know, FEZANA represents 27 Zoroastrian associations across Canada and the United States, which is roughly 25,000 Zoroastrians in total. FEZANA Talks is a new digital initiative that we launched last year to engage the Zoroastrian community in important dialogue and to showcase young Zoroastrians. And if you want to stay up to date on future events, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the FEZANA. Now, today's session allows us to hear from Zoroastrians currently serving and retired from the US and Canadian military. Our panelists are officers in the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and they will be sharing their candid views on joining the military and serving their country today. And as a Canadian Navy Reserves officer myself, I'm very excited to hear from today's speakers, and I hope you all get a chance to learn something new today. And with that, I'd love to now call upon Kainas Vakaria to lead today's session. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever everyone is. Tanya, thank you so very much. We're certainly very happy to be here. I would also like to actually take this opportunity to say a big thank you to our FEZANA president, Arzan, for his leadership, for his really initiative in holding these talks and having us on. And of course, none of this would be possible without the audience that has also joined us and everyone that's here. So thank you also very much for being here. Now, as you can see, I'm certainly not alone on this panel. I have a very dynamic group of folks that are joining me, and I'd like to turn it over to them to do their brief introductions. But before we go to that really quickly, I would just like everyone who has served in the military, is serving, to please just let us know about this in the chat. If you can please just put that in there so we can recognize who else is here.
Would you like me to share this video now?
Yes, please. So there you go. You do get to have fun in the military. Back to you, Kainas.
Over to Darius, please.
Hello, everyone. Darius Mirza here. I'm a major in the Canadian Air Force, a pilot currently in Greenwood, Nova Scotia, which is on the pretty far east coast of Canada. Currently doing search and rescue with the C-130 Hercules, part of the Ontario, or sorry, the ZSO, which is the Society from Ontario. Unfortunately, there's not much out where I'm located now. But yeah, I've been in the Air Force for 21 years, and no plans on leaving just yet.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Commander Farrokh Kapadia. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I grew up in South Jersey, participated in many Zupunch functions and religion classes. I went to Georgia Tech and I got my commission from there in 2006 in the Navy. My first boat was the USS Cheyenne out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. My second boat, I was a strategic weapons officer on the USS MARYLAND, and I'm currently the executive officer on the USS California, and I'm in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Kainas, back to you.
Great, thanks very much, Farrokh and Darius and Kersas. I'm, of course, Kainas Vakaria. I'm in the US Army. I have served for 27 years now, and I cannot believe it's been that long. It's gone by very quickly. I started out in one field and then transitioned into a specialization of South Asia. So my work in the last 15 plus years has really been focused in that part of the world. And you're looking at this picture here, if you can please see, Kersas had the same picture with this gentleman and me in it. And if anyone who can recognize who that gentleman is, please put that into the chat as well. We were very privileged to have that opportunity to meet this gentleman. So again, we're all very happy to be here. And what I'd like to do now is just really call out, we did see Eric has joined, he's also serving. So hi, Eric, thanks for being here. And anyone else would like to please let us know in the chat as well. And if we can just move on to our agenda for today so we can give you an idea of what we're gonna cover. This is really what we plan to talk about. There's many different ways to get into the military. We'll talk about that. Once you're in, there's a lot of different things, of course, that you can do. Not everyone is going to go and fight on the front lines. I mean, I think that's what we naturally think when the military comes to mind. And like with anything else, there are ups and downs, peaks and valleys, as I like to call them, when you're in the military, as with any other profession. So we'll talk about some of that. We'll look at what to expect when you serve. There are some very unique experiences the military offers. And then finally, as we have Kersas with us, we'll talk about life after the military, although I think all of us can probably chat about that, even though Darius says that the end is nowhere in sight and it comes sooner than you know. So with that.
For every branch, we have one school that serves the entire forces. So all the Army, Navy, and Air Force personnel go to the same school, so we all have the same education there. So I did my my degree there in civil engineering, and but there are also lots of different ways of entering the military. The RTP program is the main program in Canada, but there are quite a few other programs to enter. I know that there's quite a few people who entered in a very similar program but didn't go to military college. They just went to a regular university and then picked up their training after school was done. But those programs kind of come and go, so it's hard to know what's being available right now. Yeah, so that's pretty much the way to enter in the Canadian forces. I think there's also different entry programs for kind of those really specialized fields like doctors and lawyers, because obviously our main school does not teach those specific vocations. But I think with those particular ones, they'll either pay for you to go to school after you've already been in for a while, or to hire you after you've already been after you've already done medical school or whatever.
Great. Well, thank you. As I mentioned, Kersas is one person on our panel who has done one of the military academies. I understand that's very easy to get into. It's almost like, no problem, simple. So Kersas, if you can please tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. Just keep in mind my information and personal knowledge is a little bit dated. I entered the Naval Academy in 1986 and graduated in 1990. So the academies in general are basically a military college. It's a 4-year institution, and you'll go there and you'll graduate with a Bachelor of Science, and you'll receive a commission in one of the armed services. There's 5 service academies are the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, the U.S. Military Academy in West Point, New York, U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut, and the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, New York. The degree programs that you can opt for vary. The Military Academy West Point offers as many as 37 majors, whereas the Merchant Marine Academy has as few as 5. Course curriculum will be different, but they're all the same in the sense you'll participate with all your core classes for your degree, and then you'll have military classes on top of that. The size of the schools are all different. The largest being about 4,500 or so at the Naval Academy, and the smallest being, again, the Merchant Marine Academy at just under 1,000 total students. Most of them you'll get a Bachelor of Science, and it can vary from anything: engineering, humanities, social sciences, philosophy, economics. Every school is different, so you just have to look at that. So as I mentioned, you'll get your degree and your commission in the services. The Merchant Marine Academy also offers that you will get a Coast Guard license. I'm not sure exactly about that, but I think it might be called the Third Mate's license or something like that. So that those folks who graduate from there can go to one of the armed forces if they want, or they can continue to the Merchant Marines if they want. Acceptance rates vary from school and per year from 9 to 18%. You get your education, you get room and board, you get paid while you're there, and you get a guaranteed job after you graduate because there is a commitment, and the commitments vary. When I graduated, the commitment for pilots was 7 years after you finished flight school. So that was 2 years of flight school, so 9 years total. And in order to get in, you'll need an, obviously you have to apply, but you'll need an appointment from a congressman or a senator or president or someone else. You get an appointment, need good grades, test scores. You should most likely be an athlete and have some extracurriculars. So if anyone's interested in that, I can talk to you about that later. All right, back to you, Kainas. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Karisas. And we've been talking about how you get in as an officer and these different programs, ROTC, the military academy, but there's also the enlisted side, which I'll ask Farrokh to talk about. But before we do that, Brigadier Bayram Pantaki has also joined us. He was in the Indian Army and is now here in the Washington, D.C. area. So thank you for joining. Over to you, Farrokh, to just mention the enlisted quickly.
Hey, thank you, Kainas. So the enlisted side of that, in the military, we have the officer rank and the enlisted rank. So to join the enlisted ranks for the U.S., whether it be in the Army, Navy, the Marine Corps, or the Air Force, you originally go to some boot camp type thing, which it lasts from any small period of a couple of months to any period longer than that. And the baseline for the kind of that basic training indoctrination into the military is to kind of break the person down and then build them back up into that standard, either that standard airman, Marine, sailor, or Coast Guard when they come out from there. Once you're done that basic indoctrination training, you go into more specialized training. For the Marines, it's an MOS. For the Army, it's just different specializations, whether you're going to be an infantry soldier, whether you're going to be an artilleryman, water purification, any type of specialty that you do, that's what you do after that basic kind of indoctrination there. There's different schools. So in the Navy, we have C school. So if you come in there, you go to basic, and then after that, if you're going to go work on a submarine, you go to nuclear power school, you learn how to work on a prototype and an actual nuclear power plant. And once that's done, like all your schooling is done, you go to your first command. So you either go to your first submarine, your first ship, and that's the kind of the way it goes for the enlisted corps there. Depending on it, whatever you're doing, you all go through that basic indoctrination, that schooling afterwards there. Kind of also building on that, you're going to go talk about the reserves. So in the U.S., right, we have the reserves for the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. Kind of the one point that I want to kind of clutch onto here is the Ready Reserve. That's kind of what everybody has pretty much stood and understood in like movies and everything. That's you go to some basic training for that. It's from like 8 to 13 weeks, depending on which component that you're going into. Then after that period, you actually go and you're attached to a command, and you do that kind of the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Kind of you're going to ask, hey, why would I want to do that? Why do I want to actually join the reserves? So the reserves are basically you get called up to do that stuff, but you still have an income, you have advancement, you get paid vacation, you have the training that you get for whatever specialization that you want to do. You have the healthcare, life insurance kind of allowances. You get all the benefits of being active duty, but you're not active duty, but it's only during that active duty time. Pending any questions, kind of back to you.
Yes, many different ways to definitely serve, indeed. So you're in the military as an officer, as enlisted, and there's just many different roles, many different functions, of course, that you can fill. As we talked about earlier, there's a lot in the military that corresponds to the civilian world. I mean, of course, we have doctors, we have lawyers, all of those things. And so not everyone is really, on the front lines and fighting in wars. So we can talk about just some of the different roles. And I know, Darius, you're a search and rescue pilot. So let me turn it over to you just to share a little bit of that with us, please.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm a search and rescue pilot. So I fly the C-130 in search and rescue. Again, a little differences between Canada and the U.S. I think in the U.S. the Coast Guard is responsible for a portion anyway of search and rescue through the states. In Canada, the Air Force is responsible for a portion of that. So we have search and rescue aircraft, we have search and rescue helicopters, and all the personnel to effect those rescues. Yeah, so I've been involved in quite a lot of searches for lost hikers, boaters, skidooers, crashed aircraft, and we also provide assistance to helicopters while they're hoisting people off of boats and ships. Ship out at sea, they usually have somewhat, depending on the size of the ship, somewhat limited medical facilities on board, and it could be several days for them to get back to port if something happens to a crew member. So we routinely provide support to the helicopters when they go out to these ships and lift these patients off of the boats. So it's definitely not confined to just the what you see in the movies about people in the military running around with guns and stuff all the time. I do have a video that I want to show. It's a somewhat unique video. So this is taken from the perspective of a gentleman who crashed his airplane back in 2019. So this was a rescue that we were in, that my specific squadron was involved in out in Quebec. And most of these videos are kind of shot from the aircraft, so they're a little bit not as kind of involved and visceral, but this one's pretty interesting. So if you could start that video right around the minute 50 mark. A radio that he's picking up now that we would drop to him, just to make sure that we have communications with him. There's the helicopter down to lift it out. Yeah, you can stop the video there.
That's very different from my 9 to 5, I was going to say.
Yeah, well, I think that's very true. The military will certainly give you a lot of adventure. Sorry, Darius, go ahead.
No. So the video was a little bit choppy there, unfortunately, but so it showed the first thing that went overhead was the Hercules. So we're typically the first ones to arrive on scene to get there, just because we can get there so much faster than any of the helicopters. Find the person, get comms with them, and then provide support for the helicopter while they come in and do the actual hoisting. Those guys who are dressed in the orange are the search rescue technicians. So they're the ones who actually either jump out of the airplanes and parachute down to provide assistance, or as you saw there, a big hoist up and down to provide assistance to the people on the ground. Yeah, so besides actually being directly involved in either flying aircraft and doing those kinds of things, there's so many other just administrative and specialty jobs that exist in the forces, and joining as a pilot, for example, does not confine you to be a pilot for the rest of your career either. So, for example, I have a few friends who joined as pilots, as been a pilot for several years, and are now transferred over to the medical field, and they're in med school right now. So there's a lot of lateral movement that you can certainly have in our forces, and I'm sure it's the same in the U.S. Yeah, I think Kersas, do you have anything else you want to add on that point?
Sure. My experience as a helicopter pilot, we were classified basically as logistics, but we would do operations with SEAL teams, special ops, explosive ordnance disposal. But for one of the helicopters I flew is mainly short range logistics, ship to ship, and they may be anywhere from 150 feet apart to 10 miles apart. Another helicopter I flew was more long range logistics, where we might fly 3 or 4 hours out over the ocean to find the ship and transport stuff. And we call it guns and butter. Could be anything. I've flown turkeys to an embassy in Africa, and I've taken missiles in the back of the helicopter as well. I have a friend who's a dentist in the Navy. I have other friends who are surface officers in driving ships. Most of my friends are helicopter pilots. But I took a look at the website, the way the Navy classifies a lot of their jobs, just so you understand there's so much out there, officer and enlisted. I'm just going to read through a few. You could be a musician, a public affairs officer, an air traffic controller, a cook, human resources. You want to become an electrician, a technician of any sort. There's hundreds of those. A policeman, a firefighter. You want to work in intelligence. You want to be a lawyer, legal assistant. Medical field is open, psychologist, psychiatrist, audiologist, dentist. You want to be a chaplain in the religious services. You want to be a civil engineer. You want to be a nuclear technician. Those are all just a few of the things that are available. So don't think you can't do it in the military. You can. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt of that. And I personally went into a very different field at about the 8-year mark in service. I became a regionally focused officer, and I focused on South Asia. And that really allowed me to serve in those embassies overseas. And yes, we would get turkeys every Thanksgiving, thanks to folks like Kersas, who would fly them in, and other Air Force folks. But it really was an opportunity to do something very different than what you would normally think about with the military. And that really brings me to our next point about talking about the positives and negative aspects of the military. I got to learn 2 languages. I got to do a master's degree, and all of this was paid for by the military. So these are some tremendous opportunities. The military can give you some very specialized training, some very technical training, as Kersas just mentioned, some of the fields that you can go into. You will get trained for all the things that you're going to be expected to do and the missions you're going to be expected to accomplish. So there's tremendous opportunities in terms of training. There's education benefits that are also there if you want to pursue a higher degree while you're serving, or if you want to pass that on to your children so it can pay for their education. And that really is a lot of things that you would not necessarily get in other jobs. Speaking about going into South Asia and into that field, we had talked about that one picture that had the gentleman in it. And of course, everyone guessed very right on the chat. Thank you. That was Field Marshal Manik Shah, who Kersas and I were very privileged to meet when we both completed the staff college in India, in Tamil Nadu. He was living there at the time, and we were fortunate to have that opportunity. But in all the positives, of course, with it, like with anything else, there are going to be some negative aspects. Farrokh, I would like to ask you just to maybe share some of your experiences or your thoughts on, the pluses and minuses of what you've seen in the Navy.
Yeah, so pluses and minuses, I work on a submarine. So basically it's a steel tube and we go underneath the water for months at a time. My mom's on here and she'll ask me when I go, and I'll be like, I'll tell you I'm leaving, and I'll show up about 6 to basically 3 months later. And the only communication is actually basically a little email that we have. So I've actually written letters to my wife, and she writes them to me. I don't know if anybody actually does that anymore. But the education thing is really important. Whether you're an officer or enlisted, like I said, I did a bunch of stuff with nuclear power. When those guys come out of that school and they come to the ship, there's a bunch of colleges that understand that, hey, you've done this training, and they say for maybe about an hour a week, you can actually get your associate's or your bachelor's degree. That's actually paid for. They understand kind of what training you've gone through, and knowing that they're ready to give you a diploma for that. Positive, negatives. My first station was Hawaii, so kind of looked out on there, and I've been able to visit Singapore, Japan, Saipan, Guam. Been up and down the West Coast at different bases there, and right now I'm in Portsmouth, but before that I was in Washington D.C., and before that I was down in Florida. So get to move. So negative, I have to move a lot. That's negative or positive, right? I've seen a lot of the world. I get paid to do it. I do a pretty good job. Kind of my outlook is my job is a bit different than everybody else's. So like I said, I'm the XO right now. I'm the second person in charge of my submarine. I see all the different jobs already there. I do have to make sure that our cooks are doing the right stuff. Hey, they have to make sure that they cook the chicken. The chicken is cooked thoroughly. I have yeomen that work for me, right, on the administrative side. So all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. There's a plethora of jobs. I have a doc who comes on board, and he's in charge of 150 people. And you better believe during COVID times, me and him talk a lot to make sure that the crew is healthy like that. So many different jobs, and they set you up really well for getting out and going into the private sector, because basically the private sector understands that, hey, you've done this job for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. My mom likes to ask, hey, you don't get today off? I'm like, no, I actually don't get today off. I have to make sure that my sailors and my crew are ready to go at a moment's notice. For me, kind of one of the awesomest things to do is to actually get to drive the ship. Like, we get to go underway. Probably when I was 24 years old, I was back in the engine room by myself. I was the oldest person in a watch team of about 13 people running a nuclear reactor, some depth under the ocean. Everybody else is asleep, and it's me and my watch team over there. Same thing, as you get better, you get to move forward to the forward part of the ship, and you get to drive the submarine there. The captain's asleep, everybody else is asleep. It's you in charge of everybody. It's a pretty awesome feeling. Driving the ship on the surface at night in the middle of the ocean, just you and someone else, is probably one of the best feelings, and I can't actually explain that to anybody else, but it's amazing to do. It's a great feeling. I love what I do on a submarine. Probably one of the best things there is the people around us. Really, it's a family type atmosphere there. I tell my new guys that report on board, hey, I don't just care about you professionally. I care about you morally, mentally, physically, in all other ways. So when you come on board, I want to make you a better person than when you leave the submarine. I really believe that, and I make sure I take care of my guys like that. We've talked about the negatives. I work a lot. I work pretty horrendous hours right now. It's expected, right? I'm the second person in charge, but after that, I get to go to a shore job and hopefully get to enjoy some of the things out there. Kainaz, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important negative you touched on. I mean, there's definitely separation from the family. There's going to be times when you're going to go for just a year and the family cannot go. That's an obvious one, but there's also, I think, so many positives that, when you have the negatives, they're usually outweighed, I would say. But Kersas, Darius, please share your thoughts as well.
Sure. I'd probably say I think the best thing was the camaraderie. Different people, different ranks, different ages, but everybody works together. And that camaraderie, I've noticed, does not exist in my post-military career. So that's something I really like. The other thing I really like, you never had to worry about what you were going to wear in the morning to go to work. It's always prescribed by somebody to tell you what you got to wear that day, or when you change uniforms. So when you become a civilian, you have to figure out what you're going to wear every day. So don't lose your humor. The educational benefits were great. I used the military benefits to get 3 master's degrees. I did an MBA using something that was called tuition assistance, where basically they reimbursed me for somewhere between 50 to 75% of the cost, and I went to night school for 2 years. The other 2, I went to the Naval War College and also with Kainaz to the Indian Defense Services Staff College in Wellington, Tamil Nadu. You get military benefits at the commissary and exchanges. Exchanges are tax-free. I think those were a much better deal 20 years ago. They're not as good a deal now. You can find cheaper prices out in town, so that's kind of a double-edged sword maybe. You will move around a lot, and for the married folks with kids and separations, that I understand is difficult. I was single my entire time in the military. I got married after I got out. In my 20-year career, I moved between 9 to 10 times. That included a couple trips to Italy, and obviously the one to India I just mentioned. Something to remember is that the military is a subsection of America. So we have all the same problems that you get in the civilian world with people. And we have also the benefits you get with all the different people. And I think the organization itself is run very similar to the corporate world, except I think we have maybe a slightly better enforcement arm, you know, in terms of how the organizations are run. So it's probably not too different there. And I think that's about it. Right.
Darius, anything from you?
Yeah, I was going to say that I do search and rescue now, so it's I'm home pretty much all the time these days, which is nice for the family anyway. Before I came over to the C-130, I was on the C-17, which was a much bigger aircraft, and we did kind of long haul transport. And with that, I really did see the entire world. Back then, Afghanistan was pretty much in full swing. This was 2008 or so. So lots of trips to Southwest Asia, and just traveling all over the world, which is really exciting, especially as a young guy. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of the military. As Karis has said, the camaraderie with the people that you're working with is amazing. Just being able to travel the world and doing a job that not a lot of people get to do was really great. The moving, it has its pluses and minuses. You know, we tend to move every 3 to 4 years, give or take. Sometimes you'll change jobs anyway every 3 or 4 years. Sometimes it's within the same base. Sometimes you're moving across the country every couple of years. So I guess there's good and bad to that. If you don't like where you end up, you only have to be there for 3 or 4 years, and you'll move somewhere else. So there's lots of pluses and minuses with the service. Overall, I've really enjoyed my time.
I was actually going to say just that. I mean, you might sometimes go to an assignment, you don't like it, you get sent to a place. Of course, you don't have a choice. You have to go where you're sent. But the good side of that is that you will be there only for 2 to 3 years, and you're not stuck in that, and you'll move on to something more enjoyable. So I think we've also covered lifestyle of the military, I think, in talking about this and how we have experienced some of that. But, you know, at some point your career comes to an end. Some people will retire after just maybe 1 or 2 tours. Some people will stay for 30 years and do the full time, but there is life after the military. And one of the positive aspects is, of course, the pension, which is changing a little bit now. It's different from when 4 of us came in. And Farrokh, I think you can maybe just tell us about the new system, if people are coming in today, what they can expect in retirement briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Kana. So the new way for the U.S. Armed Forces, it's called the blended retirement system. Kind of the old way that it worked was at 20 years, your highest kind of rank or pay grade there, they would look at it for the last 36 months, and that would be used as a multiplier to kind of figure out what your retirement pay would be. And really it was a kind of an all or no sum game. Either you do 20 years and after your 20 years you get a pension, or guess what, you don't do 20 years and you don't really have anything. And kind of to support people who don't want to do it for the 20 years, they came out with a blended retirement system. And what it is you have a TSP, which is the equivalent to a 401k for all of the other companies out there. And what it is as soon as you join the service, the government will actually match 1% of your base pay, and they'll match it for 1% actually up to 5%. And kind of the way that works is you'll have that, you can put in 5% and the government will match it up to 5% there, add it into your TSP, which is the government run 401k, and that'll allow you to kind of accumulate there. So when you get out, whether it be in 8 years, 12 years, or 15 years, whatever you feel like, you actually have a 401k. You don't have that all sum kind of just, hey, I have to go out to 20 years or be out of it. And then kind of when you're out of it, when you get out of it with the blended retirement system, when you get out, you have that kind of base pay there, but then you also still have all the medical benefits there. So it's really better for people who want to join and don't want to make it a career for that 20 years.
Very good point. And I think the military has, seen the benefits of keeping people on for the longer durations, especially if they're given certain training, like, they're pilots or doctors, and some significant amount is invested, of course, in their training. They would want to retain those folks. But again, if you're getting out after 1 or 2 tours and you look at it as just something short-term, you still have a number of positive aspects that you can then take into the civilian world. If employers are looking for management experience, they're looking for responsible people who can be responsible. I mean, the military certainly will help in that sense. So not everyone has to make it a career. Kersas, you're retired, so let me just turn it over to you to talk a little bit about life after the military.
Okay, thank you. So I know people who've gotten out after their minimum commitment, which again varies, but it's around 5 years after being commissioned as an officer. And one gentleman I knew was a surface warfare officer. He did it strictly because he wanted to check in the block for military service because he wanted to go into politics. And he was moving on to law school after that. So he had his path ahead of him. I have a classmate of mine from the Naval Academy who just retired after 30 years. How many of you got in now, Kainas?
I'm at 27.
27. So some people love it and they stay in. But getting out, I think for most who've been in for a while is a difficult transition. It is definitely a transition. It's not just a changeover that happens automatically. There is a lifestyle change at home. There is a lifestyle change at work. There's a different language. There's a different work environment. How you interact with your coworkers, how you talk to people, it's different. And it's a challenge. I think a lot of retirees find it easier to transition to government contracting companies that tend to hire a lot of former military personnel because we tend to act alike and think alike. That kind of thing makes it a little easier. But I was also in an I won't say all civilian company, but when I flew as an EMS helicopter pilot, it was not a military mentality at all. And it was quite different. Corporate America is different. You'll find that some of them are very accepting of you, but the hardest part is probably to translate your skills and your skill set and your experience. When you tell them that, you were in charge of so many people, they understand that, but they don't really know when you say what you really did. And I found that to be very difficult. I'll give you one personal example that I think corporate America has kind of missed it is, I won't mention the name of the company, but it's one of these home improvement companies. And they were lauding that they're hiring all these military people, because it's good publicity. So I went to their website and I filled out the forms, and they have this translator where you can put in all your degrees and your career path and all that kind of stuff. And it came back that I was qualified to be a cashier at the register. Okay. I don't mind starting at the bottom from somewhere, but if you're going to have me put in all that information, someone off the street can start as a cashier. It didn't really make sense. So I had that similar experience with other places. So I'll say corporate America hasn't figured it out yet. The companies that have military representatives in it nowadays, a lot of HR hires former military people so they can help translate those skills. And that's good. Security clearances. A lot of military folks get security clearances. I know if you're in the submarine world, you don't go anywhere without a clearance. Mine came and went. It just varied. A lot of companies in the contracting world, defense contractors, like that. It saves them a lot of money. But on the other hand, it makes them tend to favor people who have clearances and they maybe not looking at the whole person. Clearances cost tens of thousands of dollars for that company to get it. So if they can hire you and save $10,000, $20,000 over candidate B, that's something to think about. Another thing about retiring is a lot of people like to go into the federal government or state government, but federal government will give you points towards the job, how the system works. We won't go into that, but they give you a slight boost as a former military when you apply for jobs. So that's kind of nice. Double-edged sword I've experienced was with healthcare. I didn't need a whole lot of healthcare in the military and when I retired, but my family does. And I haven't found that the retired healthcare plans live up to what they tout. It may be for different reasons, but it's basically a government HMO, and I think you get what you pay for. It could be a lot better, and it doesn't have to be the way it is, I think. And as a retiree, you definitely move to the back of the line. So that's something else to think about. And reasonably being, yeah, the active duty forces should be at the front. I won't disagree with that. And after a while, things just change. I've been out for 11 years now, and I'm probably more civilianized and less military, I think. You could probably ask my friends and family what they think. But it is a transition you'll go through, and there is life after the military, and it can be good.
Okay, Kersas, drop and give us 20 push-ups. We'll see if you're more military or civilian. Okay, just kidding. No, good points, definitely very good points. And I'm, looking through the chat, and everyone is saying, thank you for your service. Thank you for keeping us safe. And, I really just want to say that we would not really be able to do what we're doing without the support of our family, our community, and really beyond even that. And I failed to mention at the beginning, I'm in the DC area, so part of ZAMWE, Zoroastrian Association of Metropolitan Washington Incorporated. So shout out to them, but I'm also part of ZANT, Zoroastrian Association of Northern Texas. And really the support you get from your family, your immediate community and others that are there really makes all the difference. And we would not be able to serve, and we would not be able to go through some of these things that we do without the community. So having said that, I would just like to have Darius and Farrokh please contribute any last notes that you have or words that you'd like to share, and then we'll turn it over to Tanya for questions and answers.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the life after the military portion. Obviously, I'm still in, or I do have quite a few friends who have left the forces, and for pilots, for fixed wing pilots anyway, it's usually to go on to airline jobs, which isn't doing all that hot right now, but back in the day it was going pretty strong, and they really enjoyed moving on to a different style of or different pace, a different style of flying, a little bit more stable and stable job where they know their schedule a week or a month in advance. I can tell you what my schedule is going to be next week until my schedule actually starts. And but the thing that Kersas has mentioned about the community, or the community in the military, and the lifestyle and the camaraderie, that's what they've all said that they miss the most about the military, is the camaraderie with the people, because you don't hang out with the people in an airline job the way you would people in the military, right? Like back before COVID days, on Fridays would be going off to the mess and having a beer at the end of a long work week, and I just don't think that happens in a lot of civilian jobs.
Good points. Farrokh, over to you.
Yeah, I've actually helped a lot of people get out, actually, both officers and enlisted. I always ask them what they're going to go do. And yep, a lot of times they go into government service. What Kersas talked about, the security clearance, I know friends that have done that, and big companies hire them because they have a security clearance, and because it's such a they save a lot of money on it. So that's one thing most people do before they get out, is make sure their security clearance is up to date. And then it helps them kind of get that job, which they might not have all the technical rigor for, but the company understands that, hey, they can hire them and they can train up the person there. And really, people getting out can do anything and everything that they want. I've seen people get out, get jobs at basically power plants, nuclear and commercial power plants. One of my really good friends got out after being in the Navy for about 4 years. He works on Wall Street right now. The military helped him get his master's, his master's, and now he works on Wall Street. Other people get out and they don't like submarines and they want to go become doctors. So I have J.O. who actually took the MCAT last week, and he's trying to go to medical school because he wants to be a family practitioner. Pretty much the sky is the limit. You pretty much have, everybody understands what you've done so far. They know that your capacity to learn and kind of your leadership has been tested, and they actually really want you for those jobs there. So it's a pretty good thing getting out, and life after military is pretty good for most people. Over.
Okay, anything else from any of our panelists? I'll give you 2 seconds. Tanya, over to you.
Great. Thank you all for this incredible presentation. I've had the privilege of listening many times to people who are in the Reg Force talk about service in the military. Like for me, myself, I'm a reserves member. And for people who don't know that, that means like I do this part-time, probably once a week I dedicate time. And my question really, I want to start off selfishly asking my first question, which is, what are some misconceptions that you have received being in the military? Because I've also received a lot of misconceptions from people who don't serve or don't know anyone who serves. And I know one common one is that most people think that if you're in the military, you're trained to kill. And that's like your main focus. And I mean, I've never touched a weapon in my life. I'm in the military. I'm hired by the military. I'm paid by the Department of National Defense, but I'm not trained to kill. I'm trained to, bring up the future leaders of our country. That's my job as a member of the cadet instructor cadre. So I teach young kids actually just how to be good people, good adults, how to be leaders, how to be confident, how to be able to work with a team. That's really my main goal. And I know you brought up a lot of different roles that have nothing to do with holding a weapon. And that's kind of like a misconception that I've noticed, but I'm curious now being in the Reg Force, what are some misconceptions that you feel like might also come a lot from the civilian world, or maybe even from your own religious community?
I could just maybe mention from the aviation side of the house, maybe not so much applies to this one, but a lot of the civilian employers for aviation jobs who aren't as familiar don't know what we do as helicopter pilots, even though they're hiring. One example was they were asking, I was applying for a job to fly to oil rigs. And they were asking me if I ever landed on an oil rig, and I'm like, no, and they think I have no experience for that kind of thing. Yet every Navy ship I landed on had very little clearance and was a tiny spot and was usually pitching and rolling, and sometimes it was night. So misconceptions about our experience as pilots, I think, or perhaps they thought we were reckless because maybe we take a few more chances than maybe like a commercial airline pilot or something like that would. That would be one example, maybe.
Darius or Farrokh, any input? Otherwise, I can cover something. I think one of the misconceptions really is that the military is very much a certain way, and it is not, you think of the military, you think of discipline, you think of, toughness and all those things. And yes, there's no doubt that it is different from the civilian world in that sense. But the military also is very much a reflection of society. So the problems that you see in society, some of the challenges that exist out there are also very much in the military. And I'll cover some of this. I mean, right now we are having, we had actually in the military a stand down to look at extremism within the military. This is something that is out there in our political culture and in our country that's being examined, but it's also very much part of the military. Even things like sexual harassment, sexual assault. I mean, we have problems with those types of things, and that is very much a reflection of what you see on the civilian side. So while the military does have its different what they call the Uniform Court of Military Justice, and we have different set of rules and how things are prosecuted. It is still an issue that we grapple with, and a lot of the problems in society are reflected in the military. They're just maybe handled differently and addressed through a chain of command versus always just through courts and all. So I think you do see the society being part of the military, but there are some, I think, a sense that, okay, the military is just one thing, but no, it's very much what you see out in society as well.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Curtis, if you have anything else to add.
I was just going to say some other misconceptions might be from watching movies. In general, we don't all walk around squaring corners, saluting every time we turn, and that people walk normally, act normally. We only do what we're required to do. We sit and we slouch like everybody else. We don't sit at 90-degree angles. So things like that you see on Hollywood probably aren't that accurate. So just keep that in mind.
That's a really good point. That's definitely a really good point. I'd love to kind of bring the questions more to a religious aspect. Several people are wondering, when you're serving, are you allowed to wear your sadre and your kushti? Are you allowed to pray or wear religious emblems? Like, can you proudly be Zoroastrian while you're serving in the military?
I think we all would say an astounding yes. I mean, I certainly do. I've never had a problem with observing the religion, wearing my sadra kasti. And so I will even go one step further as, to say that recently the Army started allowing Sikhs to wear turbans and are doing other measures that allow for this type of accommodation and allowing people to observe their faiths. But over to the other panelists.
I was just going to agree with Kana's there. I think maybe the only time frame that would be maybe a little bit tougher would be something like basic training or something like that, where you have a lot of very tough time constraints and things like that to be able to take a few minutes. But even then, I think if you were to make your desires and your wishes clear to the staff, they'd find a way to accommodate. And besides that, yeah, I personally have had absolutely no issues with that in my time in the forces.
Yeah, same thing. They're actually very accommodating. They'll help you out there. I mean, just to let everybody know, I've heard from other people, right? There's Wiccans on other places there's Wiccan guilds that they have out there, and the military accepts them. And I even think there's the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster out there. So anything and everything out there, they'll accept you. So yeah, there's no problem.
As far as wearing religious articles, I think for the most part, as long as it's not seen outside of your uniform, that's not a problem. Like you can wear a necklace, but your necklace can't show. And your sadra and kasti don't show. So that kind of thing, certainly accepted.
I'll just add one more thing. We have a chapel in the Pentagon, and there are, it's a multi-faith chapel, of course, and there are actually separate spaces that have been set aside for Muslims to do their prayers if they wanted to pray, during the 5 times a day prayers. And there are also services for many different faiths that are held in this multi-faith chapel in the U.S. Pentagon.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, in my experience, like most people in the military actually are from a religious background, and there's a lot of measures in place to accommodate them, whether it's for like dietary restrictions and as well as like making time to ensure that they can practice their faith. I've noticed in my experience that it's been accommodated. So I'm really glad to hear that. Continuing on, I'm wondering if any of you lean on your faith while you have served. Like, how has Zoroastrianism kind of helped you being in the military in any way? Whoever can kind of speak on that, if Zoroastrianism has played any role.
All right, I guess I'll start this one off. My job is rough. It's really tough. I mean, I'll speak for everybody out here to say, I'm sure there's times where you don't sleep for 24, 48, 36 hours. Days on end, and doing some missions and stuff that we do, right? There's times there where you're scared, right? And you're the only person that you have to trust. So, I mean, everyone says there's no atheists in foxholes. I know none of us maybe has been in a foxhole over there, but having your faith, something to lean back on when everybody's looking to you, right? And you're the leader there. Yeah, I definitely just kind of close your eyes and you're like, okay, take a deep breath. Like my mom says, when you walk out the door, say one Atharya, one Shimbahu, go out there and do great things, right? So that's the best thing that I can say, that, yeah, it's definitely something that you think in the back of your mind that, okay, I've had the training, I know what I'm doing, I'm gonna go forth and attack this situation with the best of my abilities, and somebody out there is gonna look up for me and take care of me and everything that I do.
I'll say that it's certainly having that faith and having your religion, and it's one more thing that gives you the support. It's one more thing that gives you that necessary, confidence, and tells you, okay, you can do what you have put your mind to doing. There is no doubt I jumped out of airplanes in 1990 something, very early, 1991, 92. And I will guarantee you, every time I was getting ready to go out that door, I was praying, without a doubt. I was praying sometimes during the training when we had to jump out of a tower because it looked scary. So I think we all rely on that, of course, in times of need, but even otherwise, it is certainly something where you have more confidence, you have more belief just because you have that to, guide you throughout everything you're doing. I mean, it's a way of life, right? It's a part of our life, our faith and our religion. So it is very much included in this aspect as well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That makes me really happy to hear. Another question is that, being minorities, ethnically speaking, have you experienced any prejudices while serving in the military? And if so, how did you respond to that? And then an additional question to add on to that is, are there, in your experience, are there any diversity or inclusion initiatives in the military?
I'll take a stab at that. I can't honestly say that I've been prejudiced against, but I believe I have. And that's because of certain, I won't go into details, but as I mentioned earlier, the military is a subset of regular society. And if you walk out today, you watch the news, you see what's going on, there's things out there. So those things find their way into the military. One instance I had, which didn't affect me or anything like that, but was kind of interesting, is our squadron that I was in would, like most commands, would have a Christmas party every year. And they wanted to make it mandatory for all the officers to go. And I wasn't going. And I got called into the executive officer's office, and he asked me, "Why aren't you going?" And I said, "It's not my holiday. It's not my religion." He says, "What if we call it the winter party?" I said, "You can call it what you want, but I know what it is." And then he threw me out of his office. So that wasn't direct prejudice or anything, but everybody pushes an agenda. It's not always religious based, but that was my experience. Most of my coworkers, we don't talk religion or that kind of thing, but if it ever came up, everybody was very respectful of people's different backgrounds. Most of my experience.
I think I can say that I have not experienced anything of that sort. I have not come across that. So maybe I'm sure it is out there. It certainly does exist, but I have really been fortunate in that sense.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to add except to echo what kind of said. I haven't experienced anything like that myself either.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Another question is, why did you go into the armed forces? What ultimately motivated every single one of you to be in the military?
I can start that. I've always wanted to be a pilot. It's been a childhood dream of mine since before I can really remember, and I've always been interested and love the military. Like, you know, what young boy doesn't? And it just seemed like the best way to kind of fulfill both of my dreams.
Okay, I'll go next. I actually went into the military because I had an ROTC scholarship. So it paid for 80% of my tuition and the other 20% was covered. So I said, okay, I didn't really know much about it, or I had no intention of joining the military necessarily, but with the scholarship, I had to pay back 4 years of service in return. So after graduating, I went on and did 4 years on active duty and thought, okay, after this, I'm gonna go back and do grad school and all as was originally planned, but that just never happened. I enjoyed it so much. I moved around. I went to different places in my first 5 to 7 years, and I just absolutely loved it and stayed on. And now I don't know where 27 years have gone, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it's been that long at all. So I initially went in because it paid for my college.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. For me, I've always been interested in the military and kind of joined the Navy. I did ROTC as well, kind of looking at the different branches that I could join and what I could do there in the Navy. I wanted to be on a submarine because it was something different, something elite. I know it takes a certain type of crazy person to want to go down in the steel tube underneath water, and that kind of appealed to me there. So it was a challenge, and I really love what I do.
For me, as a child, I always loved guns. I always loved those little army figurines, tanks, weapons. I don't know why I didn't go in the army, but as high school was rounding out, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew the military appealed to me. I was looking into things like the National Guard and things like that. My father worked with a retired admiral, and he went to the Naval Academy. I think some of his family, his sons did too. So that steered me towards that.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing. This question's for Farrokh. What do you do, and what do members of your team do for fun and to keep morale high, especially when you're in a submarine and underwater all of the time?
Yeah, so there was a recent change that came out, and so the standard submarine day actually used to be 18 hours, and basically with medically looking at it, and they figured out that if people were only doing an 18-hour day, kind of after about 5 to 6 days, actually going on watch was the equivalent to driving drunk. And so they changed it actually to a 24-hour day, and the way it's broken up is we have 3 watch sections with stand watch 8 hours apiece. So kind of that 8-hour watches actually turns out more to be like 10 hours of watch, because you do your pre-watch tour, you stay in your kind of duty section there, whether it's driving the ship, operating different equipment, looking after the nuclear reactor, cooking, whatever it may be. And then you kind of have the rest of that time off. 6 to 8 hours are supposed to be for sleep. Usually it's closer to 6, maybe better than 5. So 5 hours sleep in a 24-hour period. And kind of the doing what's fun there. It's anything and everything you want to be. People bring laptops on board so they can play video games. People play magic cards. We have with the great little hard drives that we have movies that come out. One of the nice things about being in the Navy is some of the movie companies actually send us DVDs with movies that actually we get that are just going on to movie theaters and everything, so we can watch those underway. Listen to music, read. I mean, we actually have some workout equipment on board, so hopefully get in shape and everything like that. But mostly just on your downtime, it's pretty much getting ahead on admin and getting ready for kind of the next fight that's coming to us. Over.
Thank you. This is a good question. Like, because I know, I imagine all of you have families, have loved ones. How did they feel about you when you said, hey, I'm going to be joining the military? Have they been supportive? Just curious, because I'm sure a lot of people here as well might have kids down the road who are interested in joining the military. And then I guess adding on to that, kind of what advice would you give them?
All right, I'll lead off on this one too. Yeah, their initial response, being typical Parsi parents, were no, not a chance. What do you think you're doing? Kind of had to go back and then show them everything. Yep, look, this is going to pay for school. Got it. That's just a plus there. And I can get my technical degree there, and kind of what I was going to do there. Kind of went off and said, hey, everybody joining the military isn't going to be a ground pounder and learn how to kill people. hey, guess what? I get to go work on a nuclear power plant. I get to go work on a submarine. It's good stuff. I'll be learning stuff. It's safe, right? So that was kind of you have to kind of show everything out to them and say, hey, this is actually a good idea. Don't worry, this is a good career path for me.
I think for me, my parents initially, I went, right out of college and or out of high school, getting the scholarship and then starting ROTC, and they really didn't know what exactly this was. I mean, yes, there's, I think, a lot of apprehension with parents when they know that their children are looking to go into the military or join the military. That's certainly understandable. And I think they were very concerned about it, but they also felt after I did my first tour or second tour that would be it, and then I'd be finished. And of course, that's not how it worked out. But having said that, I mean, my entire family, I mean, could not be more supportive. Immediate family, extended family, anyone who's even remotely related to me, I mean, has just been extremely supportive of me, and it's invaluable to have that, really. And for parents whose kids are thinking about it and who are considering it, I personally would say support that if that is, something they want to do. It doesn't have to be a career. It can be just an initial thing out of college to see, if that is something they have an interest in. It could be, as we mentioned, just to get some skills, to get some exposure, to get training. And so I would encourage parents to be supportive of it, but go into it with an understanding of what this entails, and that this is not about just, going and getting, a degree or going and doing one tour abroad or something. I mean, ultimately the military is there to fight, wars, if that's what it had to come to.
Yeah, you gotta ask yourself what, oh, I'm sorry. Darius,
No, go ahead. Wait. So for myself, like I said, I was always interested in the military and aviation. So I was involved in the Air Cadet program all throughout high school. I'm not sure if there's a similar program in the States. I'm sure there must be something, but it's it's kind of a youth program for kids from 12 and up, and weekends and days during the week. They kind of teach just regular skills and young adult skills through the military lens, I guess you could say. So I've always kind of been part of that throughout my entire high school regime, and I've made my desires to join the forces pretty clear throughout most of high school. So I don't think it was any surprise to my parents, and even when I kind of change my mind or have different thoughts about what I want to do, they'd kind of steer me back to what they knew that I really wanted to do, which was to join the forces abroad.
you have to ask yourself, what parent doesn't worry about their children when they get their driver's license and go off by themselves, when they move to the other side of the country to go to college, and then the next step is when you join the military, and perhaps when you get deployed and you're over in the ocean for the next 6 months, or you're in some area of operations where there's conflict going on. They're going to worry. Anyone's going to worry. I think that's reasonable. I know my family was very supportive. What went on behind the scenes, I don't know, but I just know I have a supportive family.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing. I really do appreciate it. Also, a lot of the comments are thanking you for your service. So I do want to make sure I take the time to mention that, and they're very supportive. Ooh, someone's garage door. Let me just quickly check. There's a few more questions. How has the military changed you as a person? So things like discipline, commitment, reliability, leadership, followership, and feelings about the community. So in general, I guess the whole question is, how has the military changed you, or has it changed you?
Go ahead, Garza. Sorry, I can start. Go ahead.
Sorry, I guess I don't know how to answer how it changed me, but I could say how it molded me in certain ways. And probably the biggest one is, if you want something done, do it. Don't sit around and wait for someone else to do it. Don't expect anyone to help you. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, if you want something done, take the initiative, organize it, plan it, get it done, and do a good job at whatever you do. You know, if you're going to do it, do a good job.
I think for me, it's, you know, you get these skill sets, right? But overall, I think it really teaches you leadership. I mean, there's always that debate, are leaders born or are they developed? But it puts you into positions that you cannot always anticipate. It forces you to really take on and accept responsibility. I mean, that's what being an officer is. I mean, if something happens, whether you're there or you're not there, you're ultimately responsible. So it really teaches you about taking on that responsibility. But more than that, I think it's forced me to personally be a little more extroverted than I was before, because you're out in front of troops, you're out in front of personnel, and you have to be able to, you know, communicate effectively to them, to be able to get them to do the things that need to be done to accomplish the mission ultimately. So I think it's changed me just in terms of my personality to some extent, but also it's shown me, you know, what I can do. It really gives you the opportunity to test your limits and really live up to your full potential. It almost forces you to do that, or you won't be, you know, successful maybe. So I think it's just really given me a lot of different exposures that I would not have otherwise had, and taught me how to deal with those particular situations that are not always easy, straightforward. I mean, and allow you to then grow as a person as a result of that.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your honest answers. So I have one final question that we're going to ask before we wrap it up, and I do open it to everyone on the panel. But first, I'd actually like to invite Brigadier Bayram Pandaki to unmute his mic. This question I'd like to ask and have you answer first. And I have no idea how to answer this, so I'd love to hear from all of you. It's asking if you could tell us if joining the armed forces is in line with the Zoroastrian religion values of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. What are your thoughts on that?
Simple answer is definitely, definitely. The speakers in last 1 hour, the qualities and the characteristics of the armed forces, the way they served, it has amply come out that it is in total line with the triads of our faith, Humata, Hukta, Varashta. As a leader, you have to be truthful, you have to be just, you have to be honest. If you want to command respect of 10 people or 10,000 people, you got to have these character qualities in you, which our faith teaches us. It is the basic principle of Asha, and that is what it is. And let me tell you this, it is the troops that you command are like your children. They are observing you. And if you have been untruthful, if you are telling lies, if you are hiding something from them, if you have not been honest and just in their promotions, they will not respect you. And once a leader loses respect, then you are unfit to be in uniform and to be their leader. So I unhesitatingly say that joining armed forces is in total line with our faith of Humata, Hukta, Varashta. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. If any of the other panelists would like to add on to that, please do. But I really appreciate your honest answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll add on to that. My second job I had in the Navy, or as a department head, I was a strategic weapons officer on the USS MARYLAND. I had a trigger, and if I would pull that trigger, nuclear weapons would fly, right? And kind of the good thoughts, good words, and good deeds is something that I have to screen my guys for, right? And that's something I have to screen the boat for, to make sure that people who operate these systems, right, they are of sound mind, sound judgment, sound character, right? And I think protecting our families and our loved ones, right, is something that is in line with being a Zoroastrian. And that's also something why I joined the military.
Great. If no one else has anything else to ask, I'm happy to wrap it up. Any last words?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do not know how many of us know during the conversation that came about the wearing of articles of faith, Sadra Kusti. I would go to the other extent. If many of us know that there was a Colonel Kurush Barucha who was in Int Corps of US Armed Forces. He passed away in 2010, and he's been interned in Arlington National Cemetery. And on his headstone, there is an emblem of Ashok Farrokh. And this is the very first time that this emblem and the representation of Zoroastrianism is there. And I had the honor and privilege to lead the ceremonial funeral ceremony there. And this officer was posthumously awarded Legion of Merit, Colonel Kurush Barucha.
I remember that incident, and I think just going back to talking about, does the military allow all the religions and all? I mean, the fact that we were able to do these prayers and that we could do all the necessary things after he had passed away, I think really speaks to the military being very open and accepting of, of all faiths. And I believe this request was made and, very easily accommodated.
Thank you so much. This has been such an incredible chat. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody who's attended today has learned a lot. Thank you, everyone who has spoken today. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time and dedication, not only to our community, but to your fellow citizens in your country and helping to serve and protect them. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for attending today and for your really great questions as well, and for just being a great audience. I appreciate it. And thank you. And we will see you at the next FEZANA Talks. I will now open up for everyone to unmute themselves if they want to talk personally to the panelists, and otherwise we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hello. 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 Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm Kushruvacha. So I come to understand that good thoughts, good words, good deeds is a free for all according to one's thinking. So anybody joining any machinery of this world is not at all guilty, because I understand that Zoroastrianism leaves the decision on each individual. And also I do not know why the Mohammed Council, there is nobody in the Mohammed Council to support the tenets of the Zoroastrian faith and give their views. I end my conversation. Kindly reply.
May I?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Pandaki.
And for your information, Mr. Vacha, I am a member of North American Morbid Council. I am a fully qualified, trained, and practicing morbid, and I look after the Zambi community, and I'm looking after the community for last 25 years.
Okay, so I think this is an opportunity for all of us to kind of just, I mean, a lot of the speakers are also, you know, they have family here and they're all known. A lot of them grew up in North America, in the North American community. So this is a good opportunity for us to just kind of, you know, chit chat. The mic is open. The formal part of the talk is over. And the panelists can stay on as long as they want. You know, if they have to drop off, you know, they can surely drop off. But I really thank you all. I think the idea of this talk and of other future talks on the same lines is to also highlight to our young and our youth about other careers that they can explore. As Zoroastrians, especially in North America, we mostly we mostly see Zoroastrians you know, being highlighted in their in professions of medicine, science, engineering, law, and I think there are other professions that are equally important, and we are hoping that over the next few months we will slowly highlight through the work of people who have been in these professions, you know, open up avenues for other youth and young adults as they graduate, as they, you know, decide to do what they want to do after school and college, to learn about these. So you know, this is the first in that series, and we hope to continue to do more. If any of you have any suggestions, you know, please send them to Tanya or myself, and we'll try to put these you know, kind of panels together. But other than that, the floor is open, so you guys can unmute yourselves if you want to, you know, just say hi to the panelists or have any other comments to make.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for speaking today. Sharing your story was so inspiring. I'm currently a Marine Corps midshipman at the NROTC program at Embry-Riddle, and Colonel Kapadia, this question is more for you. Being a woman in the military, what's been your greatest challenge, and how have you overcome it throughout your years of service?
Well, first of all, congratulations to you and all the best as you continue, and really proud to see that this is where you're heading, and really wish you success. I think, you know, I would say challenges are not any more different than, you know, what we would face in the civilian world. The one thing I would highlight is that in the military, you are paid according to your rank and your time in service. So whether you're a male or a female, if you are a colonel with 27 years, you're getting the same thing as every other colonel with 27 years of service, or whatever the rank and time in service may be. So that's definitely a plus from, you know, what we might see on the civilian side, where you always hear, you know, women are making 77 cents to the dollar for men and all these other things. So in terms of challenge, I think some things are not different from the civilian side. You may go into some field or some unit where you do have to, you know, prove yourself. And you might be aware, but right now the military has opened up combat arms and combat service to all women across the board. I mean, this was done under the Obama administration, and it is something that has really been a big test right now. Like, should we lower the standards for women, or should they be held to the same standards if they are going to be going into these combat roles? So I think those are some of the challenges that you can expect to face, is wanting to be in those types of units or in this types of jobs and having to perform at that level. And really, I will say that sometimes you are accepted where you are, but other times you are going to have to maybe work harder, maybe prove yourself, and that's just really no different, you know, than what you would see on the civilian side. But I'm absolutely happy to chat with you more about this offline. I'll happily share my contact information and share some more thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Great to see you. Good luck, really. All the best as you continue forward. It's very encouraging and inspiring to see the, you know, next group of folks coming in.
Thank you. Thank you.
if there are no other comments, then we can end the call for the day.
We have one more.
Sure.
They just raised their hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to give kudos to FEZANA for highlighting such amazing people, such dedicated people, and also to raise the issue that when we sometimes think of the Hashem Bahu prayer, we say righteousness for the sake of righteousness, not for the sake of a reward. And I think our speakers today have really, sometimes there are no words to say how one feels, and I'm in that position right now because I have had an uncle who was injured in the war in 1965 and who suffered the consequences of that. And sometimes another person gets a medal for doing less. And these brave soldiers keep on. For them, tomorrow is just work again, whether they get the reward or not. So thank you all.
I would like to share my personal experience related to prayers, our faith in one's faith in our religion and our prayers. When I was commanding a battalion, we had gone to a high altitude area and we had sent out a patrol for 10 days. And when I say high altitude, the operating altitude was about 13,000 feet. And there at that height, we operated without any external help. One of my soldiers developed pulmonary edema. We brought him down to our base. The nearest medical help available was 7 hours drive through the hills. The time was 7 o'clock in the evening. Every unit has a doctor. So the doctor came to me, young captain, he said, "Sir, if this soldier can survive this road journey of 6 to 7 hours, and if I can get him to a medical post, there are chances that he will survive." And as you, for information of all of you, as a commanding officer, you are the father of that unit. 1,000 people, they are your children, they are your men. Should something go wrong with them, you are responsible for them. I went to my room. On a piece of paper, I wrote down Yatha radio prayers. I came back, I folded that piece of paper, told the soldier, I still remember his name, Karna Bahadur Pun. I said, "Karne, I'm putting this paper in your pocket, in your shirt pocket, just keep it there and you will be safe." And believe me, in the Indian Army, when a commanding officer says something, that soldier feels that these are the words of his prophet. He kept that paper on which I had written Yatha video prayers. I went back to my room. He started his journey. I was awake for next 7 hours. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from the doctor, "Sir, we have reached the medical room and I think the soldier will be safe." So this is just an example of the faith that you have in your prayers and in your religion.
Thank you, Bera. It's great to hear.
Can move mountains.
Yep. With your permission, Tanya, is it okay if I said something?
Of course.
Okay, great.
Yep, go ahead.
So I know we tried to say goodbye.
They're on the road 200 days a year, which is a lot, and it takes a lot for the families to be able to deal with that kind of thing. And I don't know how they do it, but they do, and it's pretty amazing.
Tanya, is anybody else going to say this is Canadian Kapadia Farrokh's mom? And as a mother, yes, we do have ups and downs. I haven't seen my son sometimes for months. I think the most was 18 months. And as he said, I don't hear from him when he's deployed, just not even an email. but you have the prayers and your community who holds you together. So I would like to thank my friends in Zapanch, FEZANA, Arzhan, and all of you for being here. And today is Farrokh's 37th birthday. Happy birthday, young man. God bless you. You are in good company with Kainas, the Kersas, Darius, and all of you. So thank you very much for being on this call. Thank you, Arzhan and Tanya, for organizing it. And God bless you all. Keep on serving in the military, and we all Zoroastrians are proud of you. Thank you, Behram, for your kind words. You've always been there. You performed Farrokh's marriage. So we have you with us all the time. And also the Dasturs in Zapanch. We have Naushir Karan Jihadi Unwala, who are there for Farrokh and for all of us. And Dolly, I see you there. Hi, Dolly. And everybody else, our Astad is there, Beros is there. And thanks a lot for all of you who are there.
But a big thank you to you, actually, because, you know, like I said throughout my talk, I mean, we who are serving could not do it without our families. We absolutely could not do it without our, you know, extended family, our family that is away from where we are at. And it's really just a huge, huge source of support that if you didn't have that, life would just be so much more difficult. When I went to India, my daughter was 5 months old and my mom came and stayed the entire year there. I mean, would I want to leave a 5-month-old with some nanny I don't know in India? Probably not. So, you know, that peace of mind and that sense of, okay, I can focus on what I need to focus on because, you know, everything on the home front is being taken care of. I mean, it's just, you cannot, I mean, that's priceless. You cannot get that anywhere else. So thanks to all the family that supports us, really.
Absolutely, Kainas. We have a close group of about 15 families in the Cherry Hill, New Jersey area. And we are like extended family. And for Farrokh, they're all uncles and aunts who are on this call today to see him who haven't seen him in a long time. So thanks for giving everybody an opportunity to see and talk with Farrokh, and to all of you, thank you very much for your service.
Hello, Farrokh. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, so with
everyone, I guess I should talk. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Yeah, like kind of talked about the home front. It's a very big deal. When you talked about faith, that's probably the one portion that I missed there, is to say a lot of times when you're praying, it's not actually for you. It's to make sure that everybody at home is taken care of, because like she said, that's a big deal, right? It's one big thing that if you have to worry about that, then that kind of takes you away from your job. But if the family is taken care of, and like my mom said, right, there's a good close-knit community, and you know that, hey, I can leave. And yeah, for me, it's really, I might be getting email, but I might not be getting email. As much as you see in the movies, submarines don't really get that much information and stuff. We're pretty well cut off from the world there. So it's good to know that, hey, yeah, I know my family, I left them 3 or 4 months ago, and I might have gotten one email that was actually like 3 or maybe like a month or 2 old, but that they're doing okay. And then making sure that they understand that, hey, even though they might not be hearing from me, that those little emails and stuff sometimes do actually make their way through and everything. So it's really good to know that kind of the faith there, and then the kind of, like you said, the wives and the family there and the husbands, they make sure everything is okay at home so that you can go and do your job. It is actually really difficult. There's a lot of stuff to kind of go through, the separation and stuff. And I mean, like right now, sometimes I didn't even know if I was gonna be able to make this call. I talked to Kainas like probably this week to be like, hey, I'm pretty sure everything should be okay, but at the last minute, I might not be able to make it. So I was able to make it. I went to work early this morning and I came back. So we're good to go. And I appreciate all the birthday wishes and thank you for the support network out there.
And Farrokh, if you had not come, actually, we had a plan. We were going to say, look, here's how the military works. You know, you think you're going to be on a FEZANA talk, but not really. You're going to be in the office, you know. So, but we are so glad you could make it, and definitely a very happy 37th birthday. You don't look a day past 30, so keep up whatever you're doing.
Okay, so with that, I thank everybody, most importantly, the 4 panelists who took their time today to share their thoughts with us. We really appreciate what you do, not just, you know, for in your line of work, but in everything. And we wish you all the success in the years to come. And stay connected. And we hope to see you back on a FEZANA talk in the future in some other role, sharing some other ideas. So with that, I thank everybody. Have a great rest of the weekend, and see you soon on a future FEZANA talk. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Kainas.